and welcome back to Shoogly Shed Motors. Bit of an exciting day in the shed today. No, we've not got the cylinder back, but I do have all my powder coating back. Paul Finnegan over at Backer Hill Powder Coating has done an awesome job. He always does a great job on the parts I give him. So he's done the frame, the wheels and a few other bits and pieces, so let's take a look. Right, first up, that's the frame in gloss black. Came out really well. Really pleased with that. Now, you saw a sneak peek down there. This is what I've gone for the wheels. It's a sort of bronze copper kind of mix with a little kind of flake in it. Don't know how well that comes up on camera. I said it before, and I'll say it again. Yes, I've powder coated the whole spoked wheel as a one unit. It's not the best way to do it. You really should strip the wheel down and rebuild it with new spokes. But as this build is trying to be on a bit of a budget, if the future owner of this bike ever feels like it, they can do just that. It won't take a lot of work, but it's more work than I want to have to do on this bike. So back wheel, all I've done obviously is just pop the sprocket on just to test the sizes and stuff. Likewise, that lovely copper bronze, very pleased with that. I don't know if you can see. Just the finish in that looks great. Really pleased with that. And then everything else, similarly, is gloss black. We've got fork lowers, centre stand, yokes, all this stuff, all nice and gloss black. Hard wearing, fresh, ready to go. So I suppose I should probably start reassembling what I can for the time being. Waiting on tyres showing up. The fork stanchions are away being re-chromed by Philpots, so until I get those kind of two things back, the rolling chassis that I'm looking for won't quite be going together. But I've got things like headstock bearings to put in, can refit the centre stand. I need to make a new spindle for the centre stand. If you remember rightly, I had to cut the old one out. Wheel bearings, that's what I was going to talk about. I've got wheel bearings to press into both the wheels. Yeah, there's things I can do. So without further ado, let's just start ticking off some small jobs. And then hopefully when I get tyres and stanchions, we'll have a rolling chassis. And then when I get my barrel back, that engine will be finished too. I'm also sporting some new Shoogly Shed merch, one of my more recent designs. I just got this the other day, perfect cozy warm jumper for the autumnal days that we're getting. So if you fancy one, check out my Redbubble store. It supports me and also you get some lovely clothing out of the deal. Alright, wheel bearings. So these are sealed, you don't need to pre-grease them, the grease is already in there. So we'll put one side in first, flip it around, put the spacer in, and then put the other side in. So what I like to do, it's not really necessary, but a wee bit of copper grease around the edge of the bearing before I press it in. Just means it's less likely to get stuck if you ever come to replace them. So get that seated, and then what I like to do is give it a wee tap to get it nice and flush. Like that. And then select a socket that fits over the outside race. Like that. So that you're pressing on the outside race and not the inner, which won't damage the bearing. And then there we go. There's one bearing in that side. And then there's a seal to go over. Again, get it started nice and flush, and then we'll just finish the seal off. Flip it over. Key thing not to forget is the spindle for the centre, which goes in there. I can't tell you how inconvenient it would be to forget that. Have to bash out your brand new bearing. It'd be heartbreaking. Okay, that's that one down to the spindle. Bearing feels nice and smooth. And then on top of this one goes the seal for this side. Now, think under the seal for this side there's meant to be a sort of tang spacer thing with tangs on it that engages the speedo drive, but I'm going to put a digital speedo on this that will use a pickup from one of the bolts on the disc, so I don't need to put that in, but if you're running a regular speedo you will. Right, the rear wheel bearings are two different sizes, so one big and one small. The big one's going to go on the sprocket side and the smaller one on the other side. So it may be quite hard to get them mixed up, they just wouldn't fit. Bit of grease. Make sure that's nice and square. Gonna need quite a big socket for this one, yeah, bigger than that. That's better. And there's an oil seal, or grease seal I suppose, to go in this side, like that. And likewise, flip the whole thing over. We've got bits of carpet stuck to it. Fluffy. That is not the right size. Well, that's frustrating, but I can just get my calipers out, take the measurements and order the correct bearing. It's not too difficult to measure up for bearings and they're pretty readily available, but it is frustrating when you buy a set of bearings that's meant for a specific bike and they don't fit. I have actually noticed with the CB250RS is that a few things like wheel bearings and other such things, like the cush drives for the rear wheel I also had an issue with. They're listed online for CB250RS, but what they actually fit is a CB250N, and the two aren't quite the same. Obviously the RS is obviously a different model of bike, so I think there's just some crossed wires sometimes when online sellers kind of list the items, which is frustrating because it makes me lose confidence a little bit when I'm ordering stuff. You know, when it's listed, so you hope that it fits the bike that it's listed for, but you know, it's such as the world. Anyway, I'm hoping that my headstock bearings are correct, which is what I'm going to try and fit next. Okay, swing arm now. I'm going to put bushings into it, and I've also given the little end caps a wee refresh too. So we'll get the bushings pressed in, end caps on, and then the spindle will go through the whole thing and hold the swing arm to the frame. So I'm putting plenty of grease into these because, unlike slightly more modern or more sophisticated setups, this doesn't have a bearing or needle bearing. It's literally just the plastic bushes, so I want to make them function as best as they possibly can. Go. So these do have grease ports that I can put grease into with a grease gun. Well, you can do it as a sort of maintenance thing. Hopefully they're packed with enough grease that will suffice for the time being. Now I've got these to go on very fortunate to have someone reach out to me and offer me a lovely set of nearly new Hagon shocks for this build. If you remember rightly, it was Hagon shocks that came off the bike, but they were a little bit worse for wear, whereas these ones are, like I say, nearly new and will do just perfectly for this build. So thanks Ian, that was a massive help. I think they look pretty cracking. The other thing I'm going to do is fit the centre stand. Now the centre stand, if you remember rightly, I had to sort of cut the old spindle out. So I've found this nice big bolt in my spares. It's a nice sort of shouldered bolt, so it should work as a spindle. Only thing it needs is to be turned down by 1mm. So I'll stick this in the lathe, turn that down. I might face off some of it as well. It might be a little bit too long, and then that will hopefully go through the centre stand and hold the centre stand on. Okay, tyres. Got some cool Kenda tyres here. So the tyres are basically going to go onto the rim on one side, inner tube in, onto the rim at the other side. So there's a number of different ways you can fit bike tyres, and I've seen quite a few people have success with the zip tie method. If you're not familiar with the zip tie method, you basically put zip ties around the whole tyre and then seat the whole thing at once. I'm not sure if that works for tube tyres as well. It might do. Maybe you put the tube in at the same time, not sure. Either way, I'm quite comfortable using my tyre levers. I've always done it like this, so I suppose don't change something that works. Valve side on first. A squish of the lubricant of your choice. Gently pull the tyre over the rim. You have to watch when you're doing this not to catch the inner tube. It's quite easy to puncture the inner tube at this stage. There we go. One tyre on. So that's my brake shoe reassembled like that. And I've got a little spacer and a cotter pin. Go in there, that just stops them coming off this way. Now this is ready to go back in the rear wheel. That's a pretty good start to getting the bike back together. I really like those wheels. I think that that copper bronze has worked really well. I'm really chuffed for that. I get that it might not be everyone's cup of tea, but I think they're pretty cool. So, especially with the chunky tyres. I'm a sucker for chunky tyres. I don't really care what people think. I really like them. I think it just brings the beef. And those Hagons, they're brilliant. So thanks again to Ian for them, because that really, saved me a lot of expense trying to seek some replacement shocks for the other Hagons that had definitely seen better days. Probably going to wrap this episode up here. I've got a few other bits and pieces I can be bolting onto the bike, but it's not the most interesting. However, I do have some exciting news. My barrel has come back from the machine shop. So it's obviously been rebored an extra millimetre, and so my oversized piston fits now. So it's also had a hone, so it's good to go. Only thing I need to do is to give it a good clean and paint it to match the rest of the engine. So I'll probably do that off camera. I'll just get that done over the next few days, and then we can get the engine finally back together. And now that we've got a frame set up, we can get the engine into the frame, and rolling chassis is ever closer. So yeah, huge step forward to get this back, and hopefully it wouldn't be too much more work to get this engine complete. As usual, please do give me a like, leave me a comment, and make sure you subscribe to the Shoogly Shed channel. Yeah, not got a whole lot more to get this bike a rolling chassis, which was kind of my aim for the end of the month. So hopefully that will happen in the next couple of episodes, and then we can take it from there. Take care. Goodbye. For fuck's sake.